So, Super Mario Odyssey is out now. I've quote-unquote beaten it and collected over 300 moons, so I decided that I might as well talk about my thoughts while the iron is hot. To save time on collecting footage and to prevent spoilers of moon locations, I've decided I'm just going to use trailer footage as the video footage. Okay, so it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone at this point that I am somewhat of a Nintendo aficionado. Watch Dogs 2 comes out, Far Cry 4 comes out, I don't really care about either of them. The new Zelda or Mario comes out, and I've gotta have it. The marketing for Super Mario Odyssey in particular struck a chord with me, because it said it was going to follow more in the lines of Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine, which are two of my three favorite Mario games of all time, the other one being Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door. Is Super Mario Odyssey as good as the other two? Not really, but it's still really good. If I were one of those deplorable fanbase members, I would instead say that because it's different, it sucks, but instead I want to focus on this game's own merits. And of course, its flaws as well. Let's start with the Power Moons. There are 800 within Super Mario Odyssey, and so far, not one of them has been more interesting than the least interesting Power Star in Super Mario 64. Whenever a company tries to sell high volume as a marketing point, I am reminded of those cheap LED drugstore games that say that there's 1,000 different games in one, but there's 10 levels, 10 speeds, and 10 different types of shooters that you get, and that adds up to 1,000 games even though they're all really just the same game. When No Man's Sky was coming out, apparently I was the only person on the planet not hyped up for it, because when they said there were infinity minus one different planets you could go to, my thoughts were along the lines of, oh look, it's the same planet except there's extra water on it. Oh look, it's the same planet except there's twice as many dinosaurs. Now this might not seem related to Odyssey, however, when it comes to the Power Moons, there are quite a lot of repeats, especially with the boss fights, where it's the exact same boss fight as before, except they take slightly more hits because they're wearing more hats. Aside from repetitive Power Moons, there are also Power Moons that are scattered everywhere. When you first get to a new kingdom, it's hard to take 3 steps without discovering one. My biggest gripe with this game, however, has nothing to do with Power Moons, but rather the game's controls. Mario, at least when compared to every single other mainstream 3D Mario game, controls like an imprecise tank. However, the game's levels are designed as though you have Super Mario Sunshine or Super Mario 64's controls. There are some sections where you have to walk across a narrow passageway and the camera will fight you every single step and you'll fall to a cheap and frustrating death. Could that be why the game gives you infinite lives? Probably. Before you beat Bowser, the collection system sucks. Before you can travel to the next kingdom, you have to complete the main objectives and also collect a specific number of moons within that kingdom. You can't use moons from another kingdom to continue moving forward like you might be able to do in, say, Super Mario 64. When you complete all of the main objectives within a kingdom, you'll collect 85% or so of the moons required to move forward, which stifles creativity and player choice. When you defeat Bowser, however, the game goes into a post-game of sorts. You know Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door, where when you beat it, they've established that you've defeated Grottus? After you've defeated Bowser, you're allowed to collect Power Moons to your heart's content, and you unlock new kingdoms based off of your total Power Moons collected, rather than on a kingdom-by-kingdom basis. This is how the game should have been from the beginning, and as a result, I advise that you try to defeat Bowser as quickly as possible, and consider everything before that nothing more than a tutorial for the actual game, which comes after you defeat Bowser. Seriously though, the post-game is roughly 15 times greater than the main game. Super Mario Odyssey enjoys employing nostalgia, in a good way. Whereas Super Mario Galaxy 2 gave you Whomp's Fortress and called it a day, Super Mario Odyssey is a lot more subtle in its references. I don't want to spoil anything, but let's just say that L is real. Is there anything else I want to say? Oh yeah, my favorite objective during the main portion of the game is during the festival in New Donk City where Pauline sings. She's voiced by Kate Higgins, who played Tails in Sonic Generation, and I think that this really shows her vocal range. While everybody's having a good time and Pauline is singing, which in-game sounds actually quite a lot different than it does in the online distributions that were released before the game, you travel through an obstacle course while everybody watches you, quite like American Gladiator. In these 5 minutes, I've been more negative than positive, and that's because with a new Mario game, you go in with the expectation that it will be good. And this game is good, however, it's not the 10 out of 10 that everyone's raving about online. Then again, gaming journalism websites nowadays give perfect scores like they're candy during Halloween, so whatever. In conclusion, Super Mario Odyssey is a very good game. It's better than Super Mario Galaxy. However, if you haven't bought a Nintendo Switch yet, and Super Mario Odyssey was the sole reason you were going to buy a Nintendo Switch, I would advise holding off for now until more games that are exclusive to the Nintendo Switch come out.